In the state of Michigan, a striking shift has emerged among voters who once rallied behind Donald Trump during the 2024 election, only to find themselves grappling with a profound sense of disillusionment and regret. These individuals, who had placed their faith in Trump's pledges of revitalizing the economy and easing the financial burdens of everyday life, now express feelings of betrayal as those promises appear to have crumbled under the weight of reality. This sentiment came to light through a revealing focus group conducted by Axios in collaboration with Engage Sago, which provided a platform for these former supporters to voice their frustrations and reflect on the unexpected downturns they've experienced since casting their votes. What these Michigan residents had hoped for was a tangible improvement in their quality of life, lower costs for essentials like groceries and housing, coupled with a robust economic recovery that would secure jobs and bolster local industries. Instead, they've encountered a starkly different outcome. Many point to a deteriorating economic landscape marked by significant job cuts that have left families struggling to make ends meet. Rising prices have further compounded their woes, making basic necessities feel increasingly out of reach and fueling a growing sense of despair. The focus group participants didn't mince words, emphasizing that the conditions they're facing now are far worse than they had anticipated when they backed Trump, with some openly questioning whether their votes contributed to a broader unraveling of stability in their communities. This narrative of disappointment isn't just an emotional outpouring. It's rooted in the lived experiences of people who feel abandoned by the very leadership they trusted to champion their interests. The Axios and Engage Sago study underscores a pivotal moment in Michigan, where once loyal Trump supporters are reevaluating their allegiance, driven by the harsh realities of economic hardship and unfulfilled expectations. Their stories paint a vivid picture of an electorate caught off guard by the gap between campaign rhetoric and post-election outcomes, leaving them to wonder if the vision they voted for was ever attainable. Across the United States, a wave of economic turbulence has swept through markets and industries, with many pointing fingers at Donald Trump's aggressive policy decisions, most notably his sweeping tariffs, as the catalyst for a dramatic downturn. What began as a bold strategy to protect American interests has, according to critics, spiraled into a financial nightmare, leaving Wall Street reeling and everyday consumers bracing for the fallout. Reports emerging from the chaos highlight a staggering drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, plummeting more than 540 points in a single day, a clear signal of investor panic and dwindling confidence in the economic direction under Trump's leadership. Meanwhile, General Motors, a cornerstone of American manufacturing, saw its stock tumble by 5%, reflecting broader fears about the stability of the nation's industrial giants. At the heart of this economic upheaval are Trump's tariffs, particularly a hefty 25% levy slapped on auto parts imported from Canada and Mexico, two countries deeply intertwined with the U.S. supply chain. Far from bolstering domestic production, this move has sent shockwaves through the automotive sector, threatening to push it to the brink of recession. Industry analysts warn that the cost of vehicles could skyrocket, with estimates suggesting price hikes ranging from $4,000 to $12,000 per car, depending on the model. For an industry where no vehicle is entirely made in the USA, relying heavily on cross-border components, these tariffs have unleashed a domino effect, driving up production costs and eroding affordability for American buyers. The ripple effects are palpable. Dealerships face shrinking demand, manufacturers grapple with slimmer margins, and workers fear looming layoffs as the sector contracts. This isn't just a story of numbers on a stock ticker. It's a crisis that's reshaping livelihoods and challenging the narrative of economic strength Trump once championed. The market collapse, tied directly to these tariff policies, has fueled debates about whether the pursuit of protectionism has instead exposed the U.S. economy to greater vulnerability. As the automotive industry teeters and consumer costs climb, the fallout serves as a stark reminder of how swiftly policy missteps can unravel financial stability, leaving both Wall Street and Main Street to pick up the pieces. In the unfolding drama of American politics, a new figure has emerged as a lightning rod for public discontent. Elon Musk, whose outsized role in Donald Trump's administration has sparked widespread outrage among voters, particularly in Michigan. Once celebrated as a visionary entrepreneur, Musk now finds himself at the center of a firestorm, with many Americans questioning the legitimacy and impact of his unelected influence within the corridors of power. Far from being a peripheral advisor, Musk is perceived by critics as wielding unprecedented authority, steering decisions that affect millions without ever having faced a ballot. This perception has fueled a growing sense of betrayal among those who feel their democratic voice has been sidelined by a billionaire with his own agenda. The frustration stems not only from Musk's prominence, but from the tangible consequences of his involvement. Many voters, as highlighted in discussions like those captured by Axios and Engage Sago, view his actions as reckless, accusing him of dismantling critical systems with a disregard for the fallout. From slashing government programs to pushing controversial reforms, Musk's fingerprints are seen on policies that critics argue prioritize his personal vision over the public good. Some have gone so far as to speculate whether his financial clout, through massive campaign contributions or strategic alliances, effectively bought him a seat at the table, raising alarms about the integrity of the electoral process. This sentiment resonates deeply in communities already grappling with economic hardship, where the idea of an unaccountable billionaire shaping their future feels like a betrayal of the democratic ideals they hold dear. What makes Musk's role so contentious is the contrast between his lack of formal mandate and the sweeping scope of his influence. Unlike elected officials who answer to constituents, Musk operates in a realm of unchecked power, leaving voters to wonder who truly holds the reins in Trump's administration. This unease has transformed Musk from a tech icon into a symbol of elite overreach, with his every move scrutinized as evidence of a democracy under strain. As Michigan residents voice their anger, their concerns echo a broader national debate about accountability, influence, and whether the will of the people can prevail in an era dominated by wealth and ambition. Across the United States, Donald Trump's decision to impose sweeping tariffs has ignited a firestorm of economic and diplomatic consequences, shattering hopes of affordability and plunging the nation into contentious trade wars with some of its closest allies. What was once touted as a strategy to bolster American prosperity has instead morphed into a costly misadventure, with prices soaring and international relationships fraying at the seams. Rather than delivering the promised relief on everyday expenses, these tariffs, particularly the 25% levies on imports from Canada and Mexico, have driven up the cost of goods, from cars to household essentials, leaving consumers to bear the brunt of a policy that's backfired spectacularly. In places like Michigan, where economic stability is tied to cross-border trade, the impact has been especially jarring, turning optimism into frustration as affordability slips further out of reach. The fallout extends far beyond domestic borders, as Trump's tariffs have provoked fierce pushback from allies like Canada and the European Union, transforming friends into adversaries in a matter of months. Canada, a long-standing partner with deep economic ties to the U.S., has responded with a bold counteroffensive, slashing its reliance on American markets and forging new trade alliances across Asia and Europe. This pivot signals a seismic shift in global commerce, with Canadian leaders vowing to protect their workers and industries from what they see as an unjust assault on their economy. The EU, too, has joined the fray, retaliating with measures that threaten American exports and further complicate an already tangled web of trade disputes. The result is a fractured alliance system, with economic security hanging in the balance. On the ground, the tension is palpable. In border cities like Detroit and Windsor, protests have erupted as residents on both sides decry the strain on U.S.-Canada relations, a bond once defined by cooperation and mutual benefit. These demonstrations reflect a broader outrage over a policy that's turned neighbors into rivals, with communities questioning why a trade war was worth the cost. As prices climb and jobs hang in the balance, Trump's tariffs have not only reversed economic expectations, but also sown seeds of discord that may take years to untangle, leaving Americans to grapple with the unintended consequences of a gamble gone awry. In the wake of Donald Trump's tumultuous policies, a grim reality has settled over the American workforce and social fabric, as massive job losses and shrinking public services paint a picture of widespread instability. Across the nation, particularly in industrial heartlands like Michigan, the promise of economic strength has given way to a harsh wave of layoffs, with hundreds of thousands of jobs vanishing seemingly overnight. Factories that once hummed with activity now stand silent, their workers cast into uncertainty as industries buckle under the weight of tariffs and a faltering economy. This isn't just a statistic, it's a human toll, felt by families who have lost their livelihoods and communities grappling with the ripple effects of diminished economic vitality. Compounding this crisis is the erosion of social services, a lifeline for millions that's now fraying at the edges. Healthcare and welfare programs, already stretched thin, are facing deep cuts, leaving vulnerable populations, especially veterans, in a precarious void. Stories have emerged of the Veterans Administration, VA, turning into a ghost ship of bureaucracy, with reports of unanswered calls and a workforce too depleted or fearful to respond. For those who serve the country, this neglect feels like a bitter betrayal, as promised support for medical care and basic needs evaporates. Even those who have managed to hold onto jobs find little comfort, as the specter of rising costs and shrinking safety nets breeds a pervasive sense of insecurity. Stable employment no longer feels like a shield when the ground beneath it is crumbling. This dual assault, jobs disappearing and social services dwindling, has left Americans across the spectrum reeling, from blue-collar workers to retirees reliant on state aid. In Michigan and beyond, the mood is one of abandonment, as citizens question how a leadership that vowed to uplift them could oversee such a rapid unraveling. The cuts to programs like Medicare and welfare aren't abstract policy shifts. They're personal blows to those who depended on them, amplifying the economic despair with a loss of dignity and hope. As the VA's silence deafens the pleas of veterans and the unemployed swell in number, the nation confronts a stark reality. The pillars of security once taken for granted are collapsing, leaving a fractured society to pick up the pieces. In Michigan, a state once brimming with political fervor for Donald Trump, a troubling disconnect has taken root between elected officials and the people they swore to represent. Lawmakers who rode the wave of Trump's popularity, like Representative Tom Barrett, now find themselves retreating from the very constituents who propelled them into office. As economic turmoil and broken promises stir unrest among voters, these politicians, once vocal champions of Trump's agenda, have gone eerily silent, dodging the public spotlight and shirking the accountability that comes with leadership. Instead of facing their communities in open forums like town halls, they're conspicuously absent, leaving empty chairs where dialogue and answers were expected. This political vanishing act has not gone unnoticed. Residents, frustrated by job losses, rising costs, and a sense of betrayal, have taken matters into their own hands, organizing grassroots meetings to air their grievances and demand solutions. These gatherings pulse with the energy of a populace unwilling to be ignored, their voices rising in makeshift venues as they confront the chaos left in the wake of Trump's policies. The absence of figures like Barrett, who might once have stood as allies in their fight for prosperity, only deepens the sting of abandonment. Citizens report seeing these lawmakers at casual events, cheering at basketball games or mingling in low-stakes settings. But when it comes to the hard conversations about livelihoods and futures, the seats reserved for decision-makers remain glaringly vacant. This retreat marks a stark shift in Michigan's political landscape, where loyalty to Trump once bound lawmakers and voters in a shared vision. Now, as that vision unravels, the silence of elected officials speaks volumes, fueling a narrative of neglect that resonates far beyond state lines. The independent organizing by citizens isn't just a response to immediate hardships. It's a reclaiming of agency in a system that feels increasingly unresponsive. For a state pivotal to Trump's past successes, this growing chasm between the governed and their representatives underscores a broader crisis of trust, leaving Michigan's people to wonder if their leaders have abandoned them to face the fallout alone. For years, Fox News stood as an unshakable pillar of support for Donald Trump, amplifying his voice and defending his every move with unwavering loyalty. But in a stunning reversal, the network that once served as his megaphone has begun to turn its gaze and its criticism toward the former president, marking a seismic shift in the media landscape. The catalyst: Trump's tariff policies, which have unleashed a torrent of economic chaos, including a jaw-dropping $6.4 trillion evaporation of market value across the United States. What was once heralded as a bold strategy to put America first has morphed into a trade war that's drawn sharp rebukes from Fox's own commentators, signaling a fracture in a relationship that long defined conservative discourse. This isn't a subtle pivot. Fox News personalities, who once spun Trump's decisions into tales of patriotic triumph, are now openly questioning the wisdom of his tariff gambit. The airwaves buzz with skepticism as anchors and analysts dissect the fallout. Skyrocketing consumer prices, a battered automotive industry, and a stock market reeling from losses that have investors clutching their portfolios in dismay. The $6.4 trillion hit to the economy isn't just a number. It's a thunderclap that's jolted even Trump's staunchest defenders into reevaluating their stance. Commentators who once brushed off criticism of the president now grapple with the undeniable consequences of a policy that strained alliances and squeezed American wallets, leaving them to wonder aloud if the cost of this trade war outweighs any promised gains. The shift at Fox reflects more than a change in editorial tone. It's a barometer of broader disillusionment with Trump's leadership. Where the network once provided a safe harbor for his narrative, it now amplifies doubts about his economic vision, with voices on air hinting at the need for a course correction. This isn't about abandoning ideology. It's about confronting a reality that even a friendly outlet can't ignore. As the U.S. economy staggers under the weight of tariffs and a plunging market, Fox News' turn against Trump underscores a rare moment of reckoning, one where loyalty gives way to the stark truth of a nation paying a steep price for a gamble gone wrong. Donald Trump's tariff policies have unleashed a storm of criticism that spans borders and political loyalties, drawing sharp rebukes from a chorus of voices both at home and abroad. Within the United States, the backlash is striking for its breadth, cutting across ideological lines to include not only prominent economists, but even some of Trump's own allies. Figures like Lawrence Summers and Paul Krugman, respected voices in economic circles, have sounded the alarm, painting a dire picture of a trade war that threatens to strangle growth and destabilize markets. They argue that the tariffs, far from protecting American interests, are a self-inflicted wound, driving up costs, choking consumer spending, and risking a full-blown recession. Their warnings carry weight, rooted in data showing a $6.4 trillion market plunge and industries buckling under the strain. Remarkably, this dissent isn't limited to Trump's usual critics. Even within his own camp, fissures have emerged, with figures like Senator Rand Paul stepping into the fray. Once a reliable supporter, Paul now questions the tariffs' wisdom, cautioning that they could erode Trump's political capital and harm the very voters he claims to champion. This rare break from party ranks underscores a growing unease about the direction of Trump's economic playbook, as allies weigh the fallout against the promises of prosperity that once rallied their base. It's a domestic critique that amplifies the stakes, blending principle with pragmatism in a call for reconsideration. Internationally, the condemnation is equally fierce. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has decried the tariffs as a stupid blow to global supply chains, warning of cascading disruptions that could ripple through industries worldwide. Closer to home, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has vowed retaliation, rallying a Team Canada approach to shield his province's workers from what he sees as an attack on their livelihoods. These leaders, representing key U.S. allies, highlight the diplomatic toll of Trump's policies, accusing him of fracturing partnerships and endangering the intricate web of trade that sustains global economies. Together, this dual-front assault, expert analysis clashing with political and international outrage, casts Trump's tariffs as a gamble that's alienated friends and foes alike, threatening both America's standing and its wallet. Amid the economic wreckage attributed to Donald Trump's tariff regime, a series of bewildering decisions has emerged, casting a surreal shadow over his administration's credibility and sparking incredulity from coast to coast. While the nation grapples with soaring car prices and a battered stock market, Trump's trade policies have veered into the realm of the absurd, targeting items and territories so obscure they seem lifted from a satire rather than a serious economic playbook. Among the head-scratchers are tariffs imposed on penguins and uninhabited Arctic islands, measures so far removed from everyday commerce that they've left observers questioning not just the strategy, but the very competence of the man behind it. These aren't mere footnotes in a broader policy. They're glaring red flags that have amplified doubts about Trump's grasp on economic governance. Penguins, hardly a cornerstone of American trade and desolate Arctic outposts, devoid of population or industry, represent choices that defy logic, prompting a mix of laughter and alarm. Critics argue that such moves expose a deeper flaw in Trump's approach, an apparent willingness to wield tariffs as a blunt instrument without regard for coherence or consequence. While the intent might have been to project strength or disrupt global norms, the result has been a spotlight on decisions that feel more performative than practical, undermining confidence in his ability to steer the nation through an already turbulent financial storm. The absurdity of these tariffs has fueled a broader narrative of disarray, with Americans and experts alike wondering how policies so detached from reality could emerge from the White House. It's not just the oddity that stings. It's the implication that the same mind crafting these measures is tasked with addressing pressing issues like job losses and market collapse. As the $6.4 trillion economic hit reverberates, these quirky tariffs serve as a stark contrast to the gravity of the moment, raising a fundamental question. Can a leader who taxes penguins and frozen wastelands be trusted to navigate the complexities of a modern economy? For many, the answer is a resounding no, turning what might have been a quirky aside into a damning symbol of a strategy and a presidency adrift. Donald Trump's presidency, once a galvanizing force for his supporters, has ignited a fierce cultural and political backlash that reverberates from late-night stages to international borders, signaling a profound rejection of his America First ethos. In the spotlight of American entertainment, figures like Jim Carrey and Jimmy Kimmel have turned their platforms into arenas of unrelenting satire, skewering Trump's leadership with a blend of humor and biting critique. Carrey's wild caricatures and Kimmel's razor-sharp roasts don't just poke fun. They dismantle the mythos of Trump as a populist savior, exposing his policies as a chaotic mess that's left the nation reeling. Joining them, Senator Bernie Sanders delivers a different kind of blow, stripping away Trump's rhetoric with stark truths about economic inequality, an FAILED Chinese letter forbid. His critiques resonate as a moral call to action, contrasting sharply with Trump's self-aggrandizing style. This domestic disdain finds an echo on the global stage, where Canada, a neighbor long tied to the U.S. by trade and history, has taken dramatic steps to distance itself from Trump's influence. The tariffs and trade wars have pushed Canada to pivot away from American dependence, forging new economic ties with Asia and Europe, while its citizens openly scorn symbols of U.S. dominance. At festivals and sports events, the American anthem is met with boos, and flags are turned away, a visceral rejection of Trump's policies. Canadian leaders, emboldened by this sentiment, have even floated barring Trump from the G7, a bold diplomatic snub that underscores a fracturing alliance and a repudiation of his unilateral approach. Together, these threads weave a tapestry of resistance, from Hollywood's stinging laughter to Ottawa's calculated defiance, reflecting a world tiring of Trump's bombast. As cultural icons mock and allies recoil, the backlash paints a picture of a leader whose America First vision is increasingly isolated, both at home and abroad, a far cry from the unity he once promised.